And the bottom half of the batting order is pretty sparse at this point. We still got a card left for Elam. They're doing raiding. They're actually having trouble coming up with things to use their points for. What they ended up is throwing a bunch into, well, a few into upgrading Persia. That leaves them to 4 in the bank still. They got one more card left. Next turn they'll probably be throwing 6 into Persia, which will set them up for the next turn. They've got their entire army on the board. They're setting up for first place in trade again. They're in pretty damn good shape. And with Assyria so busy trying to, you know, just maintain the territories that they've conquered, it's really tough for them to compete on, say, trade or something like that. And especially with this bonus card, if you recall, that Elam has picked up. This is actually the top half of the batting order. The bottom half's down here. It's all where all the power is, other than Elam. And let's see, some of the miners, the Scythians or Cimmerians, are almost gone at this point. They just have a leader left and a couple of routed units that they could call back. They got their asses kicked. They have to attack. And I think, I don't know who's in control of them now. I would rather be playing them not with player control, especially given that I'm playing solitaire anyway. But I do try to kind of capture the player versus player situation. I feel like that's an element in the game. Once the RO2 are gone, the issue kind of clears up, because then they do try to attack successfully the people that they dislike. So, you know, if the rebels have them, they'll be attacking Assyria for one action. If the Assyrians have them, they'll probably be attacking the Medes for one action. You know, and it'll just bounce back and forth, and they become kind of pointless, but not quite as pathetic looking as they are right now in terms of their actions. So, on Assyria's turn, they use a couple of battle cards. The Ashur demands Holy War and the leader wounded, to guarantee that they finish off the Medians. And those are now conquered. Take this space. Still gonna have to pay or take attrition rolls. Attrition rolls aren't that bad, you know, at this point. So I might actually be able to start maybe intervening fairly soon. Although I'm probably gonna wait. Well, there aren't a lot more cards left, so I may have to start doing my interventions very soon to start trying to get the hunger siege here, push Uruk over. I'm not gonna be able to conquer Babylon in this turn, but I may be able to continue sort of rolling down the number so that it's much easier to conquer them next turn. The Medians are knocked out for this turn. That means something. That means they're not in the camp anymore. That means that's not an issue anyway. Let's put them over here. Next turn I do have more powers that I have to worry about. The only one I really need to worry about is Elam. The others are just minor countries that are coming back online. But at the same time, you know, I'm in this position where I'm taking Babylon out. That may be tough. Elam's going to have a mighty force coming after me. And of course, Egypt is not the easiest thing in the world to get to over in that corner. My forces are disintegrating rapidly. In particular, the Phoenicians are almost gone. Just because I never get a turn where I can recharge them, and I've got to take some of my casualties on them. I could leave the Phoenician army behind as a garrison. That I might do. And speaking of which, I forgot to make a check for them to see if, hey, they get promotion for the victorious assault there. Not an assault, actually. It was an attack. I didn't do an assault here either. Assaults are pretty questionable if there's any troops in the area. You want the siege reduction, and the Assyrians are so good at that that they can probably drop, you know, with a good-sized army. I mean, I could have dropped a level 4 easily. I guess the real point there was I wanted to eliminate more of the units so they don't go in here, because now the Medes are going to be able to build up their army more quickly and recover. One of the problems they've had is they have a fairly large army available, but it's not terribly high quality, and they've had trouble getting it all deployed in the way that, like, Elam has not so huge an army, but it's all there on the board now. A while since I conquered a power, so I skipped some things and I forgot them. Forgot to look up the list, so I had to go back and take care of that. The minor city went away. The unit on the alliance track lost a d6, and that was a 9 or 2d6, which drove it down to neutral. But the biggest bonus of all for the Assyrians, they get a free redeploy out of there into nearby territory. So I'm going to be pulling all those units out. That is a real lifesaver for the Assyrians. Now they're going to be able to trump in without it being a big deal at all. And doing an interrupt on the Egyptian turn, and now another preemption on the Babylonian turn just before. Managed to raise the hunger siege level. Well, it's going to go up to the point where they have to surrender immediately. So the Babylonians have no choice. They must sortie here. There's no way around this, actually. Well, there's actually a couple of things that are a factor here. So if I didn't want to sortie out, I wouldn't be risking a battle here. If I win this battle as the Babylonians, I'm going to be able to smack the Assyrians out of that space, and then I kind of win the siege, and that would be very cool. And I'm allowed to lead this entire force out of the city. The garrison can come out. It doesn't matter what the command rating is, whatever. But it would allow me a chance at a promotion possibility. I'm going to make some choices here. For the Babylonians, they have no cards available, so they've got no problem there. They're going to have to choose whether or not they'll make that a heavy or a light. For the Assyrians, I'm going to play this battle card. I don't want to play this one particularly because I'm not all that excited about destroying the Babylonians. I just want to take their city, and then I think I might be able to make them surrender with the couple of cards I have left. And that would be a pretty damn impressive turn, because to get the Medes and the Babylonians down, that's better than I could have hoped for, I thought. But this is going to give me an ability to ignore 2 losses in the land combat, which is pretty cool. This is just the card I spent, which I'll keep kicking around, but I'm not going to have that in play. I have the ability to cancel out 6 routes, so I'm not terribly worried. I've been throwing my anti-route cards with some impunity. And yeah, well, I'll come back after the battle, or sometime after the battle. I lied, I came back during the battle. I chose to make this a heavy. The effect really is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of these. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of these. There's not going to be any bow fire. This huge mass of bowmen, they suck. I'd be better off with light infantry. Likewise here, the Assyrians are going to use heavies because they're just better in general. If you're not facing any heavies, chariots are really awesome as bowmen, but with the heavies in the play, I'm looking at 3. That's canceled out here. There's 2 more that would be canceled out. So in both cases, if I rolled everything a success, I could do 1 hit before the battle starts. That doesn't seem terribly valuable. It's especially not valuable once this card's been revealed. The results of this battle are pretty painful. Let me just take a look. The Babylonians only caused 3 casualties. The Assyrians caused 5. And the Assyrians had the bloodbath in the background. This doesn't cost any AP, so no big deal except the 6-point card that I'm losing, which I kind of need to conquer the rest of Babylonia. But this would have allowed, even if I lost the battle, I could throw this into play. There'd be an automatic next round of combat, and then the Assyrians causes an extra 2 hits on that round. That pretty much guarantees that they'd get a second chance at winning. As it is, the losses, well, this little used marker is to indicate one of the heavies hit. I don't count that in the losses. I'm not sure if that's correct or not. But if I just count it as losses, I could distribute it differently. So to keep track of that, I put that as this. In a sense, you could say, well, they're up to 4 losses if we wanted to determine victory that way. It doesn't seem to indicate that in the rules, so this is the way I'm playing it, where it just causes an extra loss. So the Assyrians have to take 3 losses, one of which is a full unit. At least one has to be a hit on their mercenary, I think. Actually, that's not true. I could take 2 hits on this army, 1 hit on this army, and that works pretty damn well. But one of the hits is a major hit, so there goes one of my crappy bowmen. Would I rather take the... I would rather take this anyhow, because it's cheaper to rebuild. Although, now I have to rebuild it before I do an attack, because it's an important enough piece. Okay, that took care of theirs, and for... and I'm taking 3 losses there, which means I have 2 routes. No routes affect me, though. I have 6 cancellations. Over on the Babylonian side, they're taking only 5 hits. That's not terribly bad. 1, 2, 3. I know I'm going to lose all my mercenaries. Actually, I may want to do it this way just to make it more expensive for somebody like the Assyrians who want to buy up the mercenaries. So that's 3. I get 2 more hits. I have to take them on regulars over here. I've been defeated, so now I have routes. How many routes did I take? Looks like 3 routes. I can't cancel any of them. I can take them all on mercenaries if I want, but it's really not going to make a difference because the Hunger Siege goes up by a level and everybody ends up in the regroup box anyhow. And we recharge the impulse marker. We're done with this round, so this actually moves up to the 6th round. Assyria still has a couple of cards. Egypt has a couple of cards. I'm going to get to play both my cards, so I don't need to interrupt anymore to make sure. Babylon made things kind of tough. They had enough points that they were able to buy an additional card, must buy an additional card, and they bought back some units from their route box, the regroup box, just to make things a little bit more difficult. Maybe if they can survive another turn, well, then we'll be seeing Elam coming in with their big army and maybe saving our bacon, but that's a pretty weak hope at this point. The victory in the battle, it was a fairly large battle. I think it was worth 2 points. And the victory over a fortress with a lot of troops in it, counts as a separate issue, ended up bringing us up to a total of 30 victory points now. That's what the plus side there means. It means I've gotten that whole 15 before. Phew. And the second to last Assyrian card. We're still not done yet. We swept through most of Babylon with this activity. Now I'm out of points, but I bought up all the mercenaries that were freed up from, geez, I think the Babylonians really largely, and because nobody else really wants to buy them late in the turn, and then swept through a lot of this territory, taking enough that I get a check. Now, the way I'm ruling this is I don't get a check every time I take a city. I get a check once in an impulse. It seems a little bit better than, you know, every time there's a conquest you get one. So I've got the capital and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 other cities. And that says, let's see. That says I get to roll, I think. I've got to roll less than or equal to the number of cities as determined above. So that's 6 cities total by my count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But there's a +2 because it is a major power. So 5, we're still under, which means we have now conquered Babylon too. And again, I get that automatic withdrawal. It looks to me like I gotta fall back into here. I'm probably gonna take, I gotta take something I conquered. I can't just take something at random, which means I guess I'll take Nipper here. I'll end up with quite a force there, but that'll be positioned to take Elam next turn. I split up my big army group because, well, I don't know how much it matters, but coming out of here, 1, 2, 3, I was able to get those 3 cities. This one was a little tougher. It's a bigger fortress. I didn't want to go into Sealand here, which is weaker, because it would cost 2 action points to get to. I had that, but I would have to take an attrition check on everything going in, and that seemed a little intense. Anyway, I got lucky, or didn't get terribly unlucky, so I'm going to be able to take a territory and fall back. And, geez, I didn't take anything that gave me victory points, but the conquest itself will. How rough things are. The Medians are actually considering handing this card off to Egypt. Egypt has 2 cards, however, and when asked, is one of them a plus card? Well, see, this is a plus card, so this would give them extra things. The problem with the Medians is they're knocked out of the war for the next turn. Now, they could certainly buy back a bunch of troops in the long run. So I'm going to roll, maybe on a 1 they'll hand it off. Nah, they're going to play it. I'm being a little greedy here, perhaps, in terms of the co-op aspect, but, you know, they don't think Egypt's likely to fall terribly much. There aren't a lot of Assyrians here, I don't think. Right, Assyria's turn is mainly spent buying back the damage that they've done to themselves, to the new territory that they've taken, to the cities, etc. Things like Gaza, where they'll take a penalty if they leave the pillage in place. So rather than that, they fixed that, but they also fixed the fortifications there just to prevent any kind of easy raid from getting in there. They also worried about building up a lot of their mercenaries. So their mercenaries, they bought one from the Phoenicians, but most of their mercenaries, they're just boosting them up so that, yeah, costs. They're cheap to rebuild, and they're going to have more than 8 total on the board, which makes things kind of nice. They really love mercenaries. If they can pick them up out of the regroup box, that's great. And they've been able to do that. I think this turn, so that they're over 8. Now they're going to have to pay for them again, maintenance-wise. They have to rehire them next turn. I think on their first impulse, they have to do that, which is. Or they take this huge negative during the interphase. Either way works out about the same. It's a major cost, but it seems well worth it to have that additional army. They don't have to pay for these every turn, though, so there's kind of a difference. Permanent troops are still better, but if they can pull a bunch of the mercenary pool out of play, it means less available for other people, even if they're not necessarily particularly good mercenaries that they've got on the board. Having just quantities is kind of cool. At least that's my thinking on the matter. They moved forward, laid siege to Petra, and I think that's about it. Prepared themselves for the battle with Elam that is sure to come. Babylon's got a problem. They can't fix their issues because Egypt's going to be the last card. First we take care of the Medians, and they get 7 points. That's enough to buy themselves a card, so they're going to be able to actually act on this turn again, even though they're out. And that's the end of Egypt. They played an alliance breaker that got Phoenicia. They got a big 12 and knocked Phoenicia way down. That doesn't affect Assyria's tribute directly. They still have, now they have to check for tribute is what happens, but it does take them out of their camp, which is a big deal because these points are gone. And Phoenicia is removed from the map, so they won't be getting any trade bonus. They won't be competing for trade, which is no big deal for Egypt particularly. but they may have been the number 2 trade person, and now that's going to give that to Medea. That's the end of the cycle. That means the turn end marks was over here, now it's moved here, and that's where we're going to start, is with Babylon next turn. Not that Babylon can do much. I have to do the interface, and I'll come back probably either within that or after it and seal this video up, even if it's short. I've handed out the cards based on the eco values. I'm kind of midway through, right? These aren't the final eco values because I got to throw the trade in, although I did do the little final trade action, the free one that happens at the end. Nothing came of that. The Medes are now withdrawn into the box. But we got a problem. Assyria has 12 cards they were dealt, and now they can only hold 10 total. This would include any if they had additional cards left, but all they got is their home cards back. So they got to discard 2 cards that they don't particularly like, and they're probably going to throw away things that are low value. Had a reshuffle in this case, dealt out what I could, and then did a reshuffle. I'm not sure. You know, the game might actually work better if you reshuffled every turn. The turns are big enough that it seems worthwhile, but I don't believe that's what the rules say, so not like I'm going to look it up. It really doesn't make too much difference either way. I'm just thinking, you know, so there are some cards that, like an alliance breaker or something like that, that are pretty singular in their effect. But there are usually multiple ways to get that effect. So there are more generic alliance breakers, and then there are also sometimes doubles of the same card in the deck, which is kind of cool. It means that it's not that big a deal. It does cause a little bit of a situation when you're dealing out the remains of the deck, because you have to pause in the middle of that and shuffle. So, you know, player order might be important or something like that, but it's also minor, you know. It's a big random deck. Is it really going to make that big a deal? Well, it does, because, for example, the way I chose to deal out the cards, which was, you know, 1 to everyone, then 2 to everyone, then 3, you know, a single card to everyone at a time rather than, you know, off the top of the deck, which is how I read dealing to be, unless it specifies I can do something else. It meant that one of the original cards was the only card that Urantu gets. Somewhat, though, you know. After the cards were played out, I counted up the mercenaries. Everybody else discarded and got new ones. The Assyrians are back $22 if they want to hold on to all their on-map stuff. I think it's worthwhile. They didn't deprive anyone of any. Everybody's got piles of them. They're 4 each. Not great stuff, though, for the most part. And diplomacy-wise, Elam has moved up into the rebel camp. The reason for that, quite simply, they need that big army in play to try to prevent the auto-victory conditions. Now, yes, they could actually hold off and allow the Assyrians to attack Egypt and then come in at the last moment or something, but that costs. That's a painful process to undertake, where, you know, you have to pay, like, I think it's 10 or 15 points to declare war on Assyria in that kind of condition. Far better just take my medicine, you know. You could be saying, well, wait a minute, Assyria is like 33 points ahead, and nobody's anywhere near. This is 8 points. That's true. Right now, if things ended, Assyria would just win, but they don't have to make up that 33-point deficit, or whatever you want to call it. Assyria wins if they beat the number 1 opponent and the final opponent, which is a little different. So right now the final opponent is Egypt at 2. If Egypt can gather some points, right now Elam is winning all kind of trading points. And remember, the game does get harder for Assyria as it goes on. So these are all factors to say, well, maybe it's not as unbalanced as it looks, but Assyria is going to have a chance to win if they can knock the 2 current powers out of the game. So that's something else to keep in mind, because that actually looks pretty likely. Can they face this army? Sure. And can they build this up? Well, that's a tougher thing. They don't have a huge army here. They no longer have the Phoenicians to give them kind of maybe some kind of naval operation to move these guys down through there. Syria becomes a tributary. So they could be in trouble. We'll see. But it looks to me like I don't know what the hell I did down here. When I was looking at the Cimmerians, both they and the Scythians were supposed to come in. The Scythians were supposed to come in where the Cimmerians did, and the Cimmerians were supposed to come in up here in North Phrygia and attack the Phrygians. Oops. Oh well. I'll replenish that because both things replenish to full army size either way. The one difference though is that had a leader died, that might have made a big difference. But the troops just replenished to full strength, so we should be okay with this. For the secret dip, we get some interesting stuff going on. Assyria guessed wrong in this case. They did the preventative stuff. That's going to be a revolt in Egypt and a revolt in Elam. I'll think about where I'm going to put those. The Medes get themselves an extra card. I think that's what they want. There's actually another option if you pick yourself. Special preemptive. Yeah, I don't think so. Having the card does me more good in my peaceful situation. Egypt took Syria, which they almost have an alliance if they get a good roll, which they do. That's going to bring Syria into the war. Got to remember to put them in. Babylon took a trade. They get to put one of their butt heads out into the trade box and do an immediate trade. That's kind of sweet in a way. They get a 2, which is going to be they hit a Mede. That's where all the points have been going. You know, Elam's been getting points from trade all along. Well, now they kind of have to concentrate on fighting. In their case, they went for Persia for an alliance because they can get it close. They could actually get it up to alliance level, but instead, all they get is 1 point. It's already counted in the trade. Pro. What does Pro give? Pro gives them. I'm already there. I don't think I've equated the tributes there, have I? Well, I haven't figured out tribute entirely yet, so that happens at the beginning of the turn when I make the checks. For that, so let's see. I got to figure out where I want those revolts to be. It's a city of that country. It cannot be in an occupied city or capital, but it can be placed within an intercept range. Indicates control of the city and the surrounding area, and it's able to be removed by forces moving into that area. In terms of, it really doesn't do a whole hell of a lot. This is not why I picked what I did. I picked it to cancel out. Let me just scan this over. I see another one there. It's kind of hard to grab these suckers. Elam got one. Well, if I go first, I can grab this right quick. I think it's got to be a home. It doesn't say a home city. So you know what? I can't put it here because I have forces here, but I could put it here at Elath. And that'll speed, you know, my transit across. It's not like the Egyptians are going to try to protect that. It's not like it does me a lot of good, but whatever. So that is the end of the secret diplomacy. And let's see what else we have. Timetable events. Okay, things get complicated here. So we're in the third. No, wait. First interphase was the Cimmerians appear on the north edge, and so I did it right. Now it's the second interphase, and that's what I was reading and thought I got wrong. Great. So the Cimmerians are actually going to move to North Phrygia. They get pushed out of the way by the Scythians. Okay. Successor to the throne procedure candidates, remove Sennacherib and add Esarhaddon. Well, Sennacherib's here. I don't know where I want to put Esarhaddon. But I have to make a successful roll. It's so easy to forget these things. Second interface, it's +2 for Assyria. But I conquered 2 enemies, so that cancels it out. I didn't get any miners. And I am not sacrificing a card. So it sounds like I'm even. I don't want a 6. I don't get a 6, so I get a leader. I don't have leaders with any other armies, so I'm going to keep him up there. Or I have leaders with all my other armies, so I'm going to keep him up there. Although this command is kind of iffy, and that's actually where I'm going to devote a lot of my force. I'm thinking this army has to cut down through there, and that's... I get a redeploy. We'll see if I'm allowed to redeploy through Syria. And I don't know, this crap, probably not. So I don't know. I probably won't be allowed to. I'll have to fight my way through or move through. Remove Collis and remove Mardukapaladin. Well, Mardukapaladin is gone. Well, who's Collis? I wish it told me where and who I had. Oh, that sucks. Now that I'm at war. Cimmerians were replenished to full strength, and they're going to appear in North Phrygia, and we're going to get Phrygian players in play. All losses to the Cimmerians have been replaced. If necessary, relocate them out of Urartu, and then the Scythians show up in van to eliminate Urartu. Scythians and Cimmerians acquire the Urartu home card if they capture it. They're after Scythians raid normally. Yeah. So I guess since the Cimmerians aren't going after this anymore, they wouldn't acquire it, but who knows. All right. Well, no matter what, Syria is not going to be paying tribute, but I don't believe that I can transit through that, through a tributary. I couldn't find, I seem to remember that role, but I can't find it. Maybe it's under something like friendly territory or something, but I looked up under the tribute roles and I couldn't find anything. But it's definitely not the case that they're going to be paying tribute this turn. They are going to be refusing it, and they do not need to be punished, I don't think. Although I'm sure they will be. I think they'll be conquered. Perhaps they do, I'm not sure. No, only if they fail a tribute check do they need to be punished. Okay, so I also found that my Egyptians had a couple of Scythian light infantry, Cimmerian light infantry, which got repositioned over there. And let's see, Elam consolidated their forces together with their free move. The Assyrians moved into place here. This allows me to, I can't pick this up, so I've got a couple of armies. I can either launch 2 different attacks, which is I think what I want to do, or I can combine and get myself onto one of these army group cards. I'm going to need an army group card anyway. Assyria is looking a little weaker this turn. First of all, Elam looks potent. Secondly, they've got not a lot facing Egypt. So there's some significant hope that things aren't going to fall apart too much. These damn minor nomads versus miners is just a headache. I don't know. With 2 of them in there, I'm really gonna have to like flag who controls what at any given time. So I'll probably end up adding some little tokens for that. And let's send this one up. I know it's really short compared to my normal, hour-plus videos, but I want to be able to start the next turn on a clean video. I think that's an important factor. We're getting a little faster.